2019 has been a tough year for Boeing. The airline manufacturer has had to deal with two crashes of its latest model, the Boeing 737 MAX. And as a result, it saw a drop in net profit by up to 50%. And its primary competitor, Airbus, overtook it in terms of annual sales. But this company, headquartered in Chicago, Illinois, remains a giant in the global corporate world. And perhaps what many people don't know is that commercial airplane manufacturing is a smaller fraction of what Boeing does. But before we dive deeper and try to understand Boeing and how it finds itself where it is today, I have a request to make. Please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. You don't want to miss any of the several videos we publish every week. Now, let's start from the beginning. Boeing, as a continuous business, did not start as an airplane manufacturer. It began with a venture that's entirely unrelated to air travel. But before we come to that, let's look at the beginning of the man who founded and gave the brand the name it carries today, Boeing. William Boeing was a son of a successful entrepreneur who made his money harvesting timber and dealing in iron ore minerals. William was born in Detroit, Michigan in 1881 to immigrant parents, a German father and an Austrian mother. His father died in 1890 when he was just 8 years old. William went on to receive his education both in the US and in Europe. But in 1903, just as he was about to graduate from Yale, he dropped out. He decided to go into the lumber business, which was a natural thing for him to do, given that it was the business his father was into. And in a few years, he was a successful entrepreneur. He acquired a lot of real estate with wood on it to exploit. At some point in his business's growth, he diversified into furniture production. You must be wondering at this point, but how did he end up manufacturing airplanes right from harvesting timber and producing furniture? It was by accident, actually, and that is literally speaking. Around the time William Boeing was establishing himself as a businessman, airplanes were slowly going mainstream. But they remained hugely just toys for people with the money to buy and play with them. And while on a trip to Seattle in 1909, he saw an airplane and he was fascinated. He wanted one for himself. Since he had made his money from the timber business, he could afford a toy airplane of his own. And that's how he ended up with one in his possession. Initially, all William Boeing wanted to do was enjoy flying it for leisure like most other rich guys at that time did. He trained to be a pilot, and being in the air with his Glenn L. Martin plane became his pastime. The Glenn L. Martin company later became part of Lockheed Martin, which is a major competitor of Boeing, especially when it comes to military contracts. But not long after buying his Glenn L. Martin airplane, it was involved in a minor accident. It got damaged, but could be repaired. Unfortunately, the spare parts would take a long time to arrive from the Martin headquarters. That was a disappointment to him. He's quoted as having told his friend Commander George Conrad Westerfelt, a US Navy engineer, "We could build a better plane ourselves and build it faster." The two friends agreed to work together on an aircraft-making business, and Boeing was born. And so it happened to be at the best time to found an aircraft manufacturing company. The First World War had just begun, and the US military had figured out that the flying machine that for several years had seemed to be only useful as a toy for the rich men was going to determine the outcome of the war. And they needed as many of them as they could get. The young Boeing company, then going by the name Pacific Aero Products Co., produced its first aeroplane, dubbed Boeing Model 1, and showed it to the military leadership. The military liked it and proceeded to put an order for 50 of them. From then, Boeing was officially in the business of manufacturing airplanes for the US military. And William Boeing made the company his primary business. However, after the war ended, the company, now officially named Boeing, struggled. There was not as much business. It made its attempts to grow revenue from civilian commercial airplanes and even started an airmail service, which grew to become the company we know today as United Airlines. At some time in the 1920s, Boeing had to supplement its revenue by manufacturing and selling furniture. But the 1930s proved to be good years for business. And as the Second World War approached, the company had grown both in size as well as technological capacity. Indeed, it had grown so much that it had to be broken up into 3 independent companies. In particular, the breakup was occasioned by pressure from the government, which saw the company as a potential monopoly. The pressure mostly came in the form of the Airmail Act of 1930, which directed airplane companies to de-link their manufacturing businesses from their air transport service ventures. The three companies that came out of Boeing are the United Airlines, United Technologies Corporation, and Boeing Airplane Company. In the rest of this video, we're going to focus only on Boeing Airplane Company, which has come to be referred to only as Boeing. During the Second World War, Boeing had better offerings for the military, including planes for in-air refueling, which increased the reach of the US Air Force. But it was in the early 50s that the company took a really significant step towards the shape that we know today. It introduced jumbo jets, which revolutionized both commercial travel as well as military capabilities. And in order to build the first jumbo jet, the company put in close to a quarter of its total value, and many thought it would not survive if the project fell through. Fortunately, jumbo jet became a success both for the company and for the aviation industry as it increased capacity and efficiency. The Boeing Company is the second military contractor globally after Lockheed Martin. What Boeing supplies to the military includes fighter jets, advanced weapons, missile defense systems, rotorcrafts, embedded product support, cybersecurity products, and surveillance systems. Meanwhile, the company also supplies rockets and other systems for space exploration to NASA, as well as similar entities around the globe. But how does Boeing get its business? There are two primary clients of Boeing, and that's military institutions and airlines around the world. And owing to the nature of Boeing's business, mass marketing cannot be the way it sourced its clients. Nevertheless, the company has been known to produce high-quality TV commercials. While it's very doubtful that there's an airline executive or high-ranking military officer who's decided to buy from Boeing based on what they saw on a commercial on TV, this type of public relations must serve some purpose. I guess that it creates the right environment for the clients of Boeing to do business. If you bought the idea that Boeing manufactures the best aircrafts, then you may lean toward buying tickets from an airline that uses them. That means more business for the airline and, in the long term, more business for Boeing. But for direct purchasing decisions, the company must be relying a lot on lobbying. It's not like someone walks into a Boeing warehouse and purchases a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. The orders are placed before the aircraft is manufactured, many times years in advance. And the signing of the contracts follows a very long negotiation process. In the case of the military contracts, the company often has to enter into competition with others to manufacture what the men in uniform want. Now let's turn to where we started this video. Boeing has of course had many crisis moments in its history. In particular, airplane crashes have been part of the history of aviation, and Boeing has had its fair share. But 2019 seems to have presented one of the worst, if not the worst, crises for the company. And it all started in 2011, when they unveiled the Boeing 737 MAX. It was the fourth generation of the Boeing 737 series. The narrow-body aircraft was hailed as the one that would take the company's ability to produce not only efficient, but also the best airplanes to the next level. Boeing 737 MAX is designed to consume up to 15% less fuel than the models that came before it, as well as similar ones by Airbus. It was a good deal for airlines. They rushed to place orders. Between 2016 and the beginning of 2019, close to 400 Boeing 737 MAXes had been delivered. But something was terribly wrong. On October 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 crashed into the Java Sea while on an Indonesian domestic flight. A total of 189 passengers and crew on board were killed. Preliminary investigations revealed a likelihood of problems with the plane's software system. Then, as the company was attempting to deal with the situation, yet another crash involving a Boeing 737 MAX happened on March 10, 2019. This time it was the Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 heading to Nairobi, Kenya from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. All 157 people on board were killed. One accident by the same model of an airplane was enough to elicit concerns. 2 in 6 months was really worrying to the global aviation industry. And just like the Lion Air crash, the Ethiopian Airlines crash was proven to have been caused by a problem with the software system of the plane. Airlines and regulators around the world proceeded to ground all Boeing 737 MAXes. In total, 387 of them from close to 60 airlines. Boeing is facing numerous lawsuits by families of the victims, It stands to spend a lot of money as compensation as well as a settlement for the lawsuits. The impact of crashes has been felt in other ways. The company has made the most significant losses in recent years. The profit in the 2019 financial year dropped by close to 50%. The company has also been forced to make some changes in its management. Both the head of the jetliner division and the chairman of the board have had to step down. Kevin McAllister stepped down as head of its jetliner division in late October 2019. Meanwhile, Chief Executive Officer Dennis Muhlenberg was stripped of the chairmanship of the board. Also, the grounding of all Boeing 737 MAX has derailed the company manufacturing process, as it has now to recall all of them for major technical adjustments. This takes away the focus from the orders that were already being worked on. How Boeing handles this crisis is critical to its long-term survival. We'll be here to update you. Thanks for staying with me to this point. I'll request you to subscribe if you haven't already, and also don't forget to like, share and comment. I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Bye-bye.